This house possessed. True story. I have always been quite adventurous, so it stands to reason that when I had time alone, I would pop in my car and go exploring. I especially liked finding old abandoned homes, and there are a lot of them in Colorado. My husband hated the fact that I would do this completely alone, and he was always afraid that I would get into trouble. When I saw a no trespassing sign, it was an invitation, so it's no surprise that I would often be where I wasn't supposed to be. One day, while out driving down old country roads, I happened upon an old abandoned farmhouse, so I pulled into the driveway. There was no garage or carport, so my car was right in plain sight. This old brick farmhouse was all boarded up, but around the side of the house there was an opening where one of the boards had fallen off, so I scrambled up and crawled through, and I found myself in a front bedroom. Of course, it was rather dark, but there were cracks in the boards that let in just enough light that you could easily maneuver through the house without too much difficulty. Imagine my surprise to find everything in the house still untouched. Near as I could tell, it had been empty since sometime in the 60s, so it had been sitting in this condition for a long time. I found this very strange that no kids had gotten inside to party, and there was no evidence of a homeless person, especially since this house could be easily seen from I-25, a major highway that goes through the heart of Denver, and there was an exit within walking distance. Denver had a very large homeless population, just like all big cities have. The living room had all the furniture, lamps, tables, and the bedrooms had all armoires and iron beds, everything left in the kitchen along with home canned goods, spices, dishes, everything. In the bedroom where I entered there was a portable toilet, and I wondered if someone had been sick. I got a feeling that was the case. I spent hours in there, just looking through pictures and postcards of the family that had lived there. There was a ton of Catholic paraphernalia too. You know, crucifixes on the walls, rosary beads and the like. It was fascinating to me, and I was trying to figure out why this family had left the house this way. I was so surprised when I came out how many hours had passed, but I chalked it up to being too involved and just losing track of time. I've never worn a watch, so it wasn't hard to believe that this could happen. This place also wasn't too far from my house, so I would go there as often as I could and wander the grounds. Investigating the sheds and the outhouse, the root cellar under the house was loaded with old canned goods and rotted root vegetables. The smell, of course, after all this time was non-existent, so really it wasn't unpleasant. I kept wondering what had happened there. I didn't know that the family that owned this home lived just around the corner on the same street. How I found out? They caught me there and ran me off. I watched them as they left and saw where they went. Now, when I would go back, I'd look to see if they were home before I'd go in. So, week after week, month after month, I would go back. There was so much to explore. Time after time they would catch me there, and they would always run me off. I always wondered why they never called the police on me, but they never did. I think they knew I was being haunted, although I was not aware of it at the time. Later on, after I'd been exploring for a number of months, I began to find myself there with no recollection as to how or when I'd gotten there. But every time I went in, hours and hours would go by, and every time I came out, I was always surprised at how much time had passed. I would think I was in there about 2 hours, but I would find at least 6 hours had passed, and it was dusk. It would begin to get dark, and I would have to leave because, of course, there was no electricity. I was completely taken over, and I got it into my mind that I wanted to buy this house. So I talked to my husband about it, never revealing to him that I'd been going there. I kept it a secret from everyone, even my best friend. I did some research and tried to find out anything I could about it. I did find out it was built in 1910, but could get no other information about it. I even tried to talk to the people that owned the house, but they would never tell me anything at all and would just tell me to leave, again. I never damaged anything, and I left everything exactly as it was. I never took anything from that house until one day I was drawn to an old, green, woven clothes hamper in very good condition. And since I needed one at home, I took it. After all, no one would miss it, right? Now, I'd made a connection. Bad move. Soon after I took this hamper, I had a dream. Or was it a dream? A figure in a dark hooded cloak approached me and said,
"Can I come into you and finish living out the rest of my life?"
I replied, "If I agree, then when can I live out the rest of my life?" And the figure just disappeared and I woke up. Creepy, huh? I do believe that the hamper was the catalyst for this event. I should not have taken anything. Thou shalt not steal. There's always a reason for his commandments. The next time I went to the house, it had been completely demolished. The house and all of the outbuildings were gone. There was absolutely no trace that anything was ever there. Not a brick, not a board, not even the foundation. The root cellar had been filled in completely. I was devastated and wondered how and why they did this. The house was safe and could have been sold. I'd been going there 2 and 3 times a week, so I don't know how this was accomplished so quickly. I wonder if the dream came after the destruction, but I had not known what they'd done, and the hamper made it possible for the spirit to come to me. I kept that hamper for a number of years and was always haunted by whatever happened there. As long as I held on to it, I could not release myself from the spirit that inhabited the house. Although I've never had any more dreams. I finally did rid myself of it though, because I knew as long as I hung on to it, I'd never be free. I don't remember how I disposed of it, but it wasn't until then that I finally realised this had gone on for years. I'm very much more careful now when and where I go, and I'll stand outside and take the time to size up any spirits or spirits connected to these old places before entering. Please, if you're out exploring and you find a place like this, do not take anything, as you don't know what you might be bringing home. And if you have anything from a house like this, get rid of it now.
The end.